I want to introduce to you my guest who is seated, and I want to say a big congratulations to her as well, because we introduced her the last time she was here as a government spokesperson, or a communicator for the government. But we will now introduce her with a new title. She's a Deputy CEO for the NYA, the National Youth Authority. Akosua Manu. Good morning to you.
Good morning, David.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
How you're welcome. And how has your first few weeks been?
It's actually been officially maybe 3-4 days.
Okay.
Still getting to know.
Again, the hang of it.
Yes, the terrain, and it's interesting. Looking forward to making some inroads with the team.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an amazing CEO, so it will work out.
Deputy.
Yes.
A lot of the work lies on your shoulders. So.
I welcome it.
Okay. All right. You've never been afraid of hard work, so that's good. Well, let's begin to talk about the attempted takeover of government. As the report came out this week, and the Minister of Information brought it out, and the statement was quite frightening, really, for now, they've been remanded. They went to court yesterday. They've been remanded in custody. They were charged with 5 charges. Initially there was this conversations about coup plotting, because I think that even though the Minister of Information hadn't mentioned coup plotting necessarily himself, it suggested, when you say destabilization of the country and attack against the presidency, it suggests, a coup d'etat. What's your comments on the happenings so far?
Okay, so good morning to your lovely viewers. When the story first broke, there was a write-up or a release from the Ministry of Information. It was alarming, and at the same time, it reinforced the notion that at any point in time, a group of people anywhere could be plotting all sorts of things. Now, we're not strangers to security issues and threats on our security. In fact, neighboring countries have had issues for a while now. We've seen the troubles in America, for one, with kids going to school and parents wondering if they have to buy them bulletproof vests. Now, we come to our own situation here, and a story comes out. And usually when it comes to the security agencies, hesitate to form an entrenched position on it, because I'm not a security expert. And I always worry about how much information should be given to the public, because just look at what happened with this. Within hours, there was a cynical reaction to it on social media.
It was massive.
Everybody was laughing and joking about it. But then I just looked at there was a picture of the cache of weapons.
Yes.
And it made me analyze it differently, in that I'll say a brother of a friend of mine was victim to a knife attack where he lost his life just a couple of months ago in the UK. In the UK, just having that or being caught with that can get you 5 years in jail. All right. Now, somebody brandishing a weapon or that just anywhere for whatever reason. Yeah. And you not even having any idea that they could be linked to a group. Imagine that happened, isolated attacks, but coordinated. Then look at the grenade. I mean, there was a doctor in charge, of course, but if there was a smart, organized unit, as they seem to be, just drop it in a well-populated, it could even be a church. And Ghanaians are very trusting, right? When you go to these hotels and whatnot, they say they're going to check your car. And sometimes I'm like, look, I could easily hide something, you wouldn't even see it. But all of this goes on, and we get the backstory to it, yet people don't seem to appreciate it. And it worries me, because are we saying that we would want to see it play out before we conclude that, yes, indeed, it was a serious issue? You get me? It's the cynicism on the security of it was worrying a bit to me, because remember there was a situation with a so-called insane man at Assemblies of God
Church a few years ago.
Yeah, we had that situation, and even then, it suggested that we needed to beef up security. We needed to do more things to put the systems in place to protect our own. We are fun-loving, we are hospitable, but there are persons amongst us who can go to all sorts to do things. And I understand there's a group, I think there was a Take Action Ghana. There was all sorts of inflammation messaging on there. Yeah. Yes. So it's, if it's a cell, and we've watched enough TV shows and whatnot to see how elaborate a scheme this could be, okay? And the reality is that there are those sort of activities playing around in the world. And it always seems so far removed till it comes close to home. And I would want on any day that the security agencies take it seriously, no matter how tiny or small the issue is.
Okay, so you believe through and through that this was actually properly...
I don't want to use the word coup, but I believe that they had intentions to do evil.
Okay.
The weapons that they had could inflict serious harm to people. I believe that, yes, the security agencies did trail them and monitor them for months on end.
But people ask that, look, 15 months of surveillance, I mean, is all that you uncovered was a few handguns and, AKs and hand grenades. I mean, that one you can just walk into a store and pick them up. It's not like, it doesn't sound like anything, grievous.
They had hand grenades, yes. Some of them you can easily acquire it if you have a license to get one. But they were manufacturing illegally. Okay. That's also another situation that we have to look at.
Wouldn't it have been good, though? I mean, okay, so we were told that 3 military people were involved. They've also been picked up. Wouldn't it have been good in terms of the transparency and the clarity? Wouldn't that be good for the Ministry of Information to immediately to forestall some of the the trolling on social media? Would have been good to bring out a bit more clarity. As for example, if you showed us a picture of the machine that is used to manufacture weapons, at least anybody look online, we can just go and Google what the machine looks like. We can make reference and say, listen, this machine looks real. If they found this machine for real, this is a very serious situation that we have ourselves in. But a lot of things were shrouded in mystery. Only, look, the cache of weapons that were found, Akosua, we've been in this country for the last few years. Armed robbers have been arrested with more weapons than what we saw. So this is where the whole trolling comes from. People don't believe it.
But again, they are privy to information that they might not necessarily put out in the public domain. Remember that even with how these groups behave, and again, I've mentioned I'm no security expert, but if you're on a chat group and people are saying all sorts of things, and beyond that chat group, we know that the security agencies do have the technology to monitor people beyond what the ordinary.
Yeah.
To protect us, to stop us from getting alarmed or paranoid or whatnot. What they did, I believe, was to stop them in their tracks. Only God knows what could have gone on. And I don't want us to do the what ifs and the weapons are so small. What they had on them, who knows, maybe there's even a bigger stash somewhere that they are yet to uncover. Okay. So instead of us being asking for more to let us feel like the story is neatly tied, let's follow the proceedings in the courts. I'm sure more will be uncovered and we'll get the true picture. Beyond that, I would hesitate to,
why is the Ministry of Information and the government refusing to use the word coup d'etat?
I think when we go by the word coup d'etat is over the years in the past, and I don't think I witnessed any though, but from from the blueprint of one, you essentially run to a radio station and then make an announcement and then round up a few people. I think there's a quote about strangle the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. I think there's something like that. And that was what it used to
Smite
be then.
the shepherd.
And the sheep will scatter. That was what it used to be then. But I think if now we have to go by that blueprint, we'll have to wonder if it's City FM or it's Joy FM that's most effective for their announcement. The dynamics have changed. The publics have changed. Whatever they sought to do, the security agencies, and I'm sure the National Security Minister, Interior Minister, all of them would be talking to themselves. And I'm sure there's something that triggered an alarm, and for them to have briefed the Information Ministry to put out what they did. I wouldn't be cynical about it, because imagine, and we've had Ghanaians of great repute lose their lives. Remember, how do you call it? Professor Awuno, right? And his son is a dear friend, right? Unfortunately, lost his life in a mall. Imagine that in Nairobi,
yeah.
And he wasn't a minister of state, or he wasn't the president. But imagine that if information like that was also going around there, and they knew that some people were talking about attacking, and then they just didn't take action, and then it happened. You're going to sit back and put your hands over your head, scream and cry, but then the harm has been done. I am alarmed that people are without license, and that was what was shocking to me. Manufacturing locally. What if there's a whole cell of them, pockets in the city, doing all of this? You put it all together, and it's enough to be the amount of weapons that would please you, David. Unfortunately, that isn't the case, but I believe
I'll come back to you again, Akosua.
Sure.
My other guest is seated and smiling. She's in a very good mood, I think. Joyce Bawa Mogtari, who is a special aide to the former President Mahama. Good morning, Joyce.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well.
What's up this morning?
Nothing much. It's the grace of God.
But the joy is bubbling.
Well, I'm called Joyce. I was born in joy, and I think my life has largely been a very positive one.
Nice one.
Certainly. Bright, beautiful morning. Of course, happy that my little sister is a deputy CEO. I wonder why she's not chief executive, because I think she would have done a very good job and would have been a very positive example to young people. And I hope that she'll clean the rot that is there and be sure to leave a very positive legacy, as I expect all our younger sisters to do. So good morning to your viewers on this bright, auspicious note, and thanks for having me.
Now, Joyce, you've followed, I'm sure, the happenings over the weekend and the beginning of this week, with the Ministry of Information coming out to say that this is what has been foiled, and they've been following this for about 15 months. Akosua suggests that, as far as she's concerned, this is actually something potentially very horrendous that could have happened in terms of the outcomes, and yet it has been foiled. And she's rather in disdain about all the trolling that's going on social media and so on, about people not believing in the veracity of the story from the government. What is your take on this initially?
Well, thank you very much. And I am actually very certain that this is all just a storm in a teacup.
Really?
Yes. And I've listened to many security persons who would most often than not want to make very public statements under the circumstances. Their discomfort has largely been with the extreme politicization of the subject or the matter. Indeed, if the security agencies have a sort of investigation going on, that has been going on for, at least from what we know now, about 15 months, I think that they would have found a way to break the story, a way to carry out their investigations or arrive at some conclusions. They would even have gone as far as even causing the arrests of these persons, etc. I think what has created this whole opprobrium has been the presser by no meaner person than the Information Minister of Ghana. Indeed, we all know that His Excellency the President is out of the country and currently at the United Nations General Assembly.
Yes.
So when these things happen like that, it does lead to cause for worry. It would actually generate enormous interest. Above all, we do know that honestly, when you look at research, when you look at the science of it, there really is no appetite to genuine need in Ghana for now, for any coup d'etats. If you look at the inception of the Fourth Republic, I do think that His Excellency, former President Rawlings, was actually one of the very last in terms of successful stories about coups that we've had over the years.
Yes.
And I think Ghanaians have also grown up and matured into this acceptance for our democracy. And so sometimes when these things happen, the same people that you expect to run askance in fear and in panic would pause for a moment and wonder what exactly is going on here.
Okay. Now, you use the term storm in a teacup, right? Now, yesterday, we're listening to Captain retired Budu Kumsen.
Absolutely.
And he was saying that there's nothing, for a coup plotter, there's nothing like no small arms, right? It's nothing like, it's like, this is too small. Because literally, it's a strategy that is used to overthrow a government or to destabilize a nation, not necessarily the ammunition. So the fact that we saw a few arms doesn't necessarily mean that it's a trivial matter.
Well, I think that we listen to many schools of thought. I don't think the experts we listened to really were just largely Captain Budu Kumsen. He was actually the last in the list of experts who spoke on the matter. We even listened to Boachijan, who claims to have been one of the most successful coup plotters in this country. Absolutely.
He holds it as
we listened to Major
feather in his
Festus Abuaji, who is actually a security expert and has always commented on these matters. Indeed, we also know that there's also a certain terrorist cloud hanging over the world generally. So it could also have been that there was an attempt to procure these items for some acts of terrorism. There's been some issues and concerns about current ongoings with vigilante groups. So the issue really is
the presidency. That's what makes people jittery.
I personally am not jittery, and I'm sure most Ghanaians, if you judge by the general commentary, are certainly not jittery, because this is not a situation where there was any proximity, in any case, to the seat of government. Neither was there proximity to any military installation. Neither was there proximity to any media house whatsoever. But we do know the antecedents and the historical context of coups in this country in times past. Yes, there can always be a worry about some persons who are probably engaging in certain nefarious activities. But let's fast forward. After the discussions and everything, you've seen the charges that have been proffered. None of them is a charge of high treason.
No.
Indeed, they appear
Which
to
is a little surprising.
Exactly. And considering the whole statement, the seriousness of the statement, the tone of the statement, even the posture of the person who delivered the statement, I think that this was just an attempt once more, first to serve as a decoy. And of course, we know the existing issues the government is currently grappling with. But you see, nobody governs through fear and panic. Nobody rules via fear and panic. Government should not even be exporting fear and panic. What government should be doing should be to assuage the fears of its citizens. There will always be, look, there have been incidents where you find even when a presidential convoy is moving. Remember President Kufuor's convoy in particular?
Yes. That was rammed into,
absolutely. There have been these incidents that have taken place with the seat of government or with leaders in this country and what have you. It is one of the reasons why taxpayers commit enormous resources to the protection and security detail of our leaders. But let's not, under any circumstances, seek to continue with these same diversionary tactics with which we have ruled over the last 3 years. I'm even surprised that in this case, President Mahama was not the reason why this happened. Let's just sometimes be very objective with these matters. I personally do not think that there was any attempt, or there has been an attempt to foil any coup d'etat or an attempt of same.
So you side with the lawyer.
Do you remember that there were trucks on the motorway 2 years ago carrying huge numbers of arms?
Yes.
They were impounded and investigations were carried out. We still do not even have the outcome of that investigative report. Presently, I am inclined to believe that this is indeed a storm in a teacup, that we need to carry out the investigations. Let's allow the security agencies to do their work, that let's avoid the politicization and work towards that. When there was an incident at the church of President Mahama in Assemblies of God Church near the Parliament House, absolutely. I recall that when he was finally even restrained, they found out that what he was carrying was a toy gun or something of the sort. And then eventually even they said he was deranged. The process started and then he was even committed to a mental institution. These things come up. If you go to a little corner where you find out after 15 months that people have this and this and this equipment, Till date, who has told us what sort of equipment was found at the premises? We have yet to even see photographs of same. I think that even the whole communication and strategy around the communication was not handled well. You know, when government is under pressure, these things happen. We've all been in government before. On this occasion, I think that the correspondence, the communication strategy was wrong. And I agree with the security experts that this should be left in the hands of the security agencies. It's the reason why we pay them. It's the reason why we have a full IGP. We have a whole military command in place. We have many BNI investigations. We have the CID in place. Let's allow the investigations to take place. Let's allow these charges to be taken to court. I've listened to the defense counsel, and he's very, very surprised even at the charges that they met. Because what he was expecting was that if indeed you believe that you have undertaken investigations 15 months down the line, you are convinced beyond any reasonable doubt, then the charges should not be a conspiracy to manufacture and possession and what have you. These are everyday crimes. You can go to the Small Arms Commission. They will tell you that every day, even for possessing an unlicensed gun, these are the same charges that will be brought against you. If you meet 2 or 3 of us in this room and one of us has any type of arm whatsoever, that is unlicensed, with which we have no permit to use. It would amount to the same crimes. But when you talk about a failed attempt in terms of a coup d'etat, an attempt as a possible destabilization of government, a possible attack at the seat of government or the presidency, these are very high-level accusations or allegations. And I think we need to approach this with more seriousness than we are doing and avoid the extreme pandering and politicization. This will not stop the hardship on Ghanaians. It will not end the scandals. And I'm happy that Akosua is going to the National Youth Authority. I hope she will carry out the investigation as we expect, give us a report, and let's stop these attempts to try and take attention away from the things that really matter and concern the good people of Ghana. I would always maintain that this is indeed a storm in a teacup. It is not on the scale that they want us to believe. It is a government trying to hold citizens to ransom and blackmail us all into believing that they are currently working to foil a coup or a coup attempt for that matter. We've spoken to all the regular conversations about coup d'etats, and they do not agree with this approach. Something needs to be done.
I'll come back and continue the conversation. Well, it's time for us to take a short break. It's time for us to take a short break, and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Akosua, I want to, Joyce said something. She said that all the charges that have been, raised against these gentlemen, none of them are treasonous. But from the beginning of the conversation, when the Minister of Information brought out the release, it looked very grievous. But as she says, let me read out what I have here, the charges. All right, conspiracy to commit a crime, manufacture of arms and ammunition without lawful authority, conspiracy to commit a crime, possession of explosives and firearms without lawful authority, manufacture of arms without lawful authority, manufacture of explosives and ammunition without lawful authority, possession of explosives and firearms. Now, I'm not a legal expert either, right? But from the little I understand of treason and treasonous crimes, an attack on the presidency by the citizenry in the nature in which it was described in the release from the Ministry of Information actually sounds treasonous. But the charges from the prosecution do not include anything that sounds treasonous. What's going on here?
Well,
Is it not a storm in a teacup, like Joyce is saying, is suggesting?
I don't know. Again, I'm no law expert, but maybe my big sister here is a lawyer, so she can tell us. But I understand treason cannot be tried in a magistrate court. So, unless I'm wrong. So maybe
they
were taken there to remand them.
She's just gone back to where I started from.
Okay.
That it is even in a magistrate's court tells you something.
But what's to remand them?
You go ahead.
So beyond that, again, I'm no legal, guru on it. And, the attempt to go to law school.
Even now it is more difficult.
You're going to find out how difficult it is to enter the law school.
That's a
But
good one.
again, it's the beginning. I said when issues that border on security and crime and acts and all that, the nature and the sophistication of it with technology and the things that happen now, I cannot say for sure what they knew, okay? But clearly, things were done, illegal things were done. The manufacturing of it alone allows me, because manufacturing to do what? Are you licensed to do it? You're not. You get it? And grenades scare me. I mean, we've seen enough action movies to know the damage it can cause.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's in court. Let's see how it unravels.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Nothing further to add to that, Joyce?
Well, I was just trying to, that I think that genuinely we do need to focus on the things that really matter to the good people of Ghana. As I indicated, I hope that government will come out and give us even further and better particulars,
Okay.
and give us some more information on this matter.
All right. Okay.
But I do not think that there's been any attempt that can be described as Section 180 proclaims that there has been an offense of treason or anything close to that. And I think that it is something we need to take a very close look at and be sure that we do not mislead the general public or unnecessarily cause fear and panic.
Okay. All right. I'll start with you on the next one. Takoradi kidnapped girls. The DNA results have been released, at least been read out by the IGP, the acting IGP, and but the family have requested for hard copies of the results. They've also requested for a second opinion, as it were, for a different expert to also do the tests. Basically, they don't believe that the results are accurate. They don't believe those dead bodies found in the septic tank were their daughters. So far, the police seem, and I say this advisedly, seem to have gone back to sleep, in the sense that after the IGP read out the statement, there doesn't seem to be anything else that has happened in regard of the family. And because it's not, I don't think the case has ended necessarily, but it seems as if that's the police's position, that once they've come out and read the results, the case has ended. What is your take on what's going on so far? And do the families have a basis for requesting for hard copies of the DNA results?
Well, David, I think that right from the inception of this matter, especially the conversation around the kidnapping and, of course, eventual, I don't know how to even describe it, whether they're now victims of a murder or indeed that the charges of kidnapping will still hold, I cannot tell. But I do remember that the CID boss herself had cause to give a very reassuring message that the girls had been found and were safe. It was actually a leading story and carried by many newspapers as a headline, stories both in print and online.
Yeah.
Indeed, subsequently, we received the very, very unsettling news that some bodies had been discovered and were actually, at the time, believed to be the bodies of the kidnapped Takoradi girls. Indeed, in the aftermath, a whole DNA exercise, we are told, was carried out. But if you remember, as a fallout after the announcement by the relatively newly appointed IGP, it turns out that one of the children was actually not a biological child to one of the families. And the family had come out to indicate that it was an adopted child. So what sort of DNA would they have used that could possibly lead to evidence that the child was indeed the one they had found? Note also the time lapse between when the girls were kidnapped and when these bodies were found in that system in the back of a house that they found somewhere. No information was given about time frames within which death could possibly have occurred, because these are some of the things that we know that forensics would seek to provide. Because remember that it is a reasonable or logical tracking of the evidence that will convince you whether or not indeed these are the persons. We do not even know the state of decomposition of the bodies at the time when they were removed from that particular system. So certainly it does lead to some doubt, even in the minds of us as citizens. So I imagine what the immediate families would be thinking. But you know, when you first do a DNA test to try and ascertain whether or not these are the so-called girls that were kidnapped, I thought you would first and foremost have even engaged the families. First, you commiserate with them. You are definitely coming to them to break bad news, how you approach it even. But I also thought that the families would actually have been involved even in the process leading up to DNA tests being conducted. So they would have known that some swab was taken from them and of course used to match DNA samples of the persons who had been discovered. I listened to one of Ghana's foremost pathologists, and he spoke at length about why he is not surprised that the families have received the news with some level of doubt, because how the matter had been handled from the foregoing also did not generate enormous confidence in the investigative process. So we are still exactly where we started from, a very bad job done or an attempt to investigate such a heinous crime, several miscommunications and a very bad communication strategy to the best of my knowledge. And yes, obviously, we are still exactly where we started off from. They've generated even more confusion, and there's been no attempt in whatsoever way to assuage, to disabuse the minds of the immediate family, even to settle the doubts of many Ghanaians. I think that the police needs to do more. I can understand the new IGP probably realizing that this whole exercise had probably been botched, tried very hard to bring closure to the matter. But in its attempt to do so, I think that once more, how this was communicated, how the immediate family really, was connected to this whole exercise has once more exposed the fact that something still needs to be done. I think that very little has been heard about what forensics were taking, what sort of evidence they found even around the scene where the bodies were discovered. Indeed, picking up from the grapevine, I've heard that even one of the individuals who's been arrested for the crime even claims that the girls are still alive. I don't know if you've picked that up. There's been some communication to that effect, yes. So it is still all over the place. Nothing is settled, not in law, not in fact. I think that what happens mostly in these cases is that the investigation must be thorough, first and foremost. Communication lines must be open between those who are most likely to be affected by the outcome, good or bad. And indeed, once you convince them, it will then be their job to accept the findings. But as far as we know, and the inability of the police and the investigation bodies to convince them that we've done our utmost best is one of the reasons why we are still where we are. I've even heard for calls that the head of the CID, Madame Tiwa, should actually be resigning, considering the remarks she made. One, they were distasteful, they were insensitive, they did not even take into cognizance the fact that there might be a little possibility or chance that these girls probably may never be found. Remember that most kidnap crimes must be broken at least in the first 72 hours. If you don't receive any clear-cut idea or no evidence leads you to it, after 72 hours, it becomes very, very tricky. And this has traveled over months. The track or the trail is probably colder, and you need now to rely mostly on people's versions and stories to build your case. But largely, the forensics and above all the DNA would be your clearest attempt at finding out exactly what transpired. When we speak to these matters, we must always remember to commiserate largely with the families, because this must be a very, very, very trying time for them. A very difficult experience. We are all mothers here, we are families. It could be any of our kids found in this situation. And it will be really, really heartbreaking for you to think that the investigation will be handled in this, very, very turbulent manner, that the outcome itself still does not bring you any closure, but raises more questions even than bringing closure to the matter. I think that our security agencies can do more. I think that communication is one of the key ways of giving assurance to people, of engaging people, of allowing people to participate in a process, especially seeing as they are the ones who will be most affected by the outcome. But of course, there are many other cold cases. I'm thinking largely about the director of port who was murdered. We're still waiting for the outcome. I remember the matter of Ahmed Swale. There's still no closure to that matter. There are many of these issues that are still outstanding. And I would look forward to our security agencies doing more rather than government continue to generate even more fear and panic. Let's focus on the things that matter and make a difference in our lives. And I think the case in point presently is this matter to do with the handling of the missing Takoradi girls case. Okay. I think it could have been a tidier job, could have been done.
All right, Akosua, the families are demanding for the resignation of the CID boss. The story here in citynewsroom.com, I'll just read a portion of it. The families of the Takoradi kidnapped girls subsequently called for the resignation of some top-ranking officials in the Ghana security apparatus after the missing girls were confirmed dead on Monday evening. The families demanded the resignation of the CID boss, Mame Yatiwa Adodankwa, the Interior Minister, Ambrose Derry, and the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa. According to the spokesman for the families, Michael Grant Hayford, they are suspecting foul play on the part of the police following the release of the results confirming the DNA of the kidnapped girls. Where do you stand with all this?
It's really heartbreaking that it ended this way. My condolences to the family of the girls. One of the things that really got to me...
Your statement presupposes that you actually believe that the results are accurate.
I mean, DNA results...
You don't have any choice.
I don't have any choice. There's anything out there that is higher than a DNA result, then, you know. But this case has been it's been a roller coaster. Right, and the emotions and the anticipation, the eagerness of reuniting them with their families, the prospect that they had crossed borders, and all this is information that the police were working with based on the suspects that were rounded up. And it seems to be quite a large syndicate from what is trickling in. But my biggest worry, and I think what the support system for the family in terms of counseling, getting them to find closure is really crucial, because I've heard people saying, what else do they want government to do for them? Why are they behaving this way? You can't predict or decide how a person should act when they are grieving or bereaved. Everybody goes through it differently. Some people, it hits them weeks after. Some people just lose it within days or hours. You know, and it's the most unfortunate situation for the mothers. I mean, it's one of the toughest things I've had to speak about, especially this year, because it hurts to see it being politicized, because a lot of things do happen in the country that don't even get the sort of media attention this one got. Now, in regards to the CID boss, there was also another story online that said it was the cousin of Priscilla Bintu, one of the deceased girls. And I don't know why that's in doubt now, but I guess. She said, the truth is, one, I'm saddened that one person is being unfairly blamed for what has happened. Whoever is pushing for her resignation is being misinformed. We are just sensational in this country. We rather target people for nothing. And when we are asked to prove, we fumble. Whatever she sought to do, she did it. She has been calling us, checking on us, helping us in every way possible. As a mother, she did everything she could for us. We are targeting her unfairly. It is nonsensical for people to ask her to go. I'll stand by her any day. There's another family member saying that.
Okay.
So obviously the family is divided on that position as well. But it's not for us to debate that. Something has happened. How do we prevent it from happening again? How do we bring closure to the matter? At the end of the day, I think I would plead that court action should be expedited so that the matter comes to a close.
All right, okay. I have a few messages I want to read. Let me go ahead and read those messages to you now. And Charles Nyame from Asamankasi says, don't be surprised. The MPP we know will tell us soon that JM is behind the kitchen knife in the collection of weapons that were found. and the Bankuta coup attempt. I see. Their own failures in governance is scaring them every now and then, and they had to resort to such pettiness. In any serious country, Kojo Opo Nkrumah would be arrested for causing fear and panic. Another one, this is Suomu from Teshi. He says, he or she says, I'm not sure who it is, but he says, they being remanded is the best for further investigations to go on. But the Minister of Information coming out to say that it's destabilization of government is wrong. Remember, the government is not just about one person, but a group of people. Based on what he said, he got the whole country panicking. And why should the minister come out himself to break the news? What's the job of the PRO, of the police, and of other security agencies? This is from Francis, Tobik Francis from Namdam. He says, if in opposition you brought mercenaries from South Africa to train parallel security operatives in Ghana on weapon handling, then why do you turn around to panic? I am still finding it difficult to relate the illegal possession of weapons to the attack on the presidency. The arrest is laudable, but the message from the information minister is quite unacceptable. He should come again. Good talk, Madam Joyce. This will always remain a storm in a cup. All right, let's go to the legal wranglings that are going on with the exams. Less than 10% of those who sat, 1,800 plus people sat for the exams. 128 people passed successfully. What are your chances of going to law school?
I was going to ask if I could recuse myself from this conversation in the event that...
Take a stab at it, then I'll come to the lawyer. So
It's 1,820 people took the exam, 128 passed.
Mm-hmm. It's about 7%.
Yes, there's a lot of conjecturing, there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on and all that. That in the previous year,
do you believe any of them?
You see, social media can be quite, confusing sometimes. But I'm always careful who I listen to. I always want the facts to be as factual as possible.
Yeah.
And truth be told, there are a couple of things that come to mind. If we take between Gempa, Legon, and some of these private universities, there are people that sat last year who didn't pass, who are likely to resit, who did this year. Last year, apparently they took 200 in, but the 200 was based on a pass mark. But this year, there wasn't a specified pass mark. And that's all the conversations I'm picking up, because all I have is the online story and then the woefully scary, I don't even know what words to ascribe to it. Having about 1,600 people not, failing. I find it.
But some people also suggest that, look, the Chief Justice has said that as far as she's concerned, on her watch, we will not do mass production of lawyers, not on her watch. So some people are suggesting that, and that's one of the conspiracy theories you're alluding to, that there's the reason for not knowing the specific pass mark, right, is part of a design to make sure that not many people get into law school, in Makola or Gempo, and the other, I think Kumasi as well. So it's like it's a deliberate plan and strategy to prevent too many people. So they may have qualified, but there was a sifting and a deciding of who will go through and who will not.
It's very difficult for me because, anyway. So in 2012, I believe the criteria changed. And the exam also changed, I believe.
Okay,
That was,
sure.
yes, it did. This from 2012, it changed. Now, those administering or supervising the exams, they didn't take those exams themselves.
Okay.
That's
True.
True. That's also a concern for many, that you're applying a system that you've never sat through. So how do you tell for sure that you are using the right criteria? Now, the mass production of lawyers, if there was mass production of doctors, I would fear, right? But mass production of lawyers, given the population we have now, it shouldn't. For me, it's. I think we need as many lawyers as we can, because if you hear some of the pathetic stories and people being on remand for years for issues that would shock you, goat stealing and foul, kidnapping, or for lack of a better word. But when you look at the concerns now, and I believe they are genuine concerns, what criteria did you use? Why does the criteria change from year to year? It's a valid question. We've all been students before. Going into an exam, writing exams it's a very nerve-wracking situation for me, and having people plan out their lives and knowing that they put, they burnt the midnight oil or the candle or whatever we call it for this to happen, and not getting answers. And I read on a platform that last year those who went for remarking, and remarking cost 3,000 Ghana cedis. I'm like, wow, this is some serious business right there. And they getting vindicated because now they got through. By the end of the day, it comes down to 128. I was looking at that figure. It's like, sounds like there's a religion that says, I think a certain number will go to heaven. It's a specific number, right? I just looked at it. I thought it wasn't I found it shocking, but I'm not the lawyer. And
let me come to Joyce.
Please, what I've said here cannot be used against me. That was
taking the Fifth Amendment.
Joyce, what's going on?
No, honestly.
What's going on?
Honestly, this is surprising. And yes, I actually followed on the leadership, the Chief Justice's comments at the Ghana, the Bar and the Lawyer program, where she tried to downplay the concerns of the general public regarding ongoings at the professional school of law, because this is not at the graduate level, it is actually at the postgraduate level that we have this challenge. I've always thought that entrance exams were simply an aptitude test, that just to test your basic knowledge. And most of these people who are taking the entrance exams are people who are reading law as a second degree. So I'm actually very, very surprised. I'm totally, at a loss to understand what is going on. Note that there have been concerns for quite some time. Even for the professional exam, there have been concerns about the pass rates. And this was a huge furore that occurred about last year, same time this year, because of course the legal year is just about to start, and so the new lawyers will be called to the bar, new entrants will be admitted, and then they'll start the course all over again. I personally do not understand. I cannot understand. When I listen
Do you believe any of the conspiracy theories going around?
I don't even know what to believe anymore. Because you see, in our day, and I mean this was about 20 odd years ago, there were no entrance exams. There were no interviews. Law students were not wearing black and white every day. And the fees they pay now are astronomical.
Wow.
Yes. And then you finish and go and take an entrance exam, which I'm sure you've paid for. And they allow for 1,800 students to register. And if you have just 180-something person, that is just a little over 10% of the number. There is something wrong. First and foremost, there's also a challenge with access. Note that the professional school is still just one campus, which is at Makola in Accra. But we now have many other universities besides the public ones that are offering LLB law to graduates and undergraduates who would all want eventually to enter the professional course. I think that something needs to be done. But first and foremost, cool heads must prevail. I remember when we were younger, it was very difficult to pass ACCA. People used to write all their lives. You would meet someone who was probably like in their 40s then, and they were still taking these professional exams. I think that these are teething problems. It is just the beginning of a new standard that has been set. I'm sure gradually we would find our beat where things can be done better. But I call on the Judicial Council in particular to, as much as possible, try at least to review some of these processes. Try to investigate some of these processes. At least tell us what exactly is going on. Remember that there's nothing wrong with having cut-off points. For example, you want to have an entrance exam.
Yeah.
For this year, you are only allowing for maybe 500 students to participate. Why not? If you have 500, for example, and you take even, let's say, 25% of them, why not?
Yeah.
But when you allow for over 1,500 to register, and then you take under 200, that leaves a very bad taste in the mouths of people who are following the story. And it's really heartbreaking when you meet students. My PA is a very bright young woman. I'm sure Akosua probably would remember her from secondary school. It took her forever to enter the professional law school. And I think that is not.
Well,
not
thank you
right.
very much to my guests. I was joined this morning by Joyce Bawa Mogtari, who is a special aide to the former president, Mahama, and then also by Akosua Manu, who is a deputy CEO.
She's a big woman.
The deputy CEO of the National Youth Authority. Thank you very much, ladies. And thank you much to you two for watching this segment of the show.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this video.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The City Tube.
For exclusive Breakfast Daily content and other City TV programs.
Like, comment, and share with your friends.